How are you all doing?
Good.
Good, good.
Cool.
How are you too?
I'm doing okay. Teaching the class is quite a lot, but I guess it's good, right? If I'm stressed out with the amount of work that I have, then I know what you all are going through. So, yeah. Well, so we have a sort of casual day today. It's just us chatting. And so there are a few things that I thought we would go over. I thought we would start by maybe doing some reflection on the social media campaign. I'm curious to hear what you guys thought about that, takeaways from that. And then I thought we would move into doing some video critiques. One of my favorite parts of this class is that there's built-in opportunity for us all to sort of talk about each other's work and try to give each other feedback to make our stuff better, right? Because I don't think that there's much opportunity for that in general in Binghamton. Like you'll get an assignment, it'll be graded, and then you're done with it. So the iterative thing of working with your peers to make your stuff better, I think that's one of the strongest components of this class. So I'd like to do a little bit more of that. And then sort of maybe as a part of that, we'll see how sidetracked we get, but I'm also happy to do some screen shares in Premiere, like I did last time we did this to try to give you some tips on the technical editing side of things. And then there's also, open space to chat about anything else you might want to talk about, concerns about, I mean, I guess it should probably stay course related, but, you want to tell me about your dead dog, that's okay too. So yeah, let's begin. How did you folks like the daily articles and commenting and all that social media stuff? What was your reaction to it?
I thought it was cool. The articles were interesting. The commenting on Reddit got a little aggressive at some points.
Yeah. People are mean on the internet.
Yeah, they really are. They really like to butt in. But yeah, other than that, I thought the commenting and the social media campaign went well.
We did quite well in terms of numbers. Each article had something like 4,000 or 5,000 hits. And we picked up, I mean, it's modest, but like we picked up like 150 subscribers over the course of the campaign. So it's double what we had before, right? It's still like a drop in the bucket. But for me, it was really cool because it was this proof of principle of like, oh, if you get a bunch of people working together to promote material, like you can actually do it. Like it's not impossible. Was it? I was concerned that I was just sort of like, asking you to do a bunch of tasks that you didn't really care about, which I guess is like a lot of what school is. But I'm wondering, like, do you feel like you learned something about the way that these media sites, that these social media sites work, like Facebook or Reddit or YouTube, and like was any of that interesting just from a like a, I don't know, an internet curiosity standpoint of like how ideas spread through the tubes?
I thought so. Like when I would go back and look at the comments and saw how many upvotes like a certain article that we were commenting on got, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like people are actually paying attention. And I just think it's cool because whether or not people were nice in the comments, we still got their attention to even watch the video. So in a way, you got the point across, we did what we wanted by getting people to watch the content. So
yeah, I mean that's a thing about the internet that Donald Trump was really good at noticing. You can say things that upset people and it can still work in your favor, which is not, I don't think that's like a good feature. Like I don't think that it's like
Oh.
Wait, is it just me or is it frozen?
I think it's, yeah, he's frozen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's frozen.
Okay.
I thought it was just me.
Me too.
Maximus.
I think he's gonna come back. Well, to me, I think it was interesting, but it was also kind of a task because
Right?
I had to read. Yeah, I had to read a lot,
Yeah.
and then some of the stuff too were like pretty new to me. Even though I've taken like evolution classes, I haven't I haven't taken like some which had to do with more of
Yeah.
psychology or philosophy.
One
So
thing I noticed.
I was I was kind of
Oh, there you go.
wondering. Yeah.
I lost you all.
Yeah, you froze up.
Yeah, anyone want to repeat what you just said? Richard, you were talking when I came in?
Yeah, I was just sharing my experience because I was saying I've taken like a couple of like ecology, which has to do with evolution and stuff like that, but I haven't really taken classes that deal with the philosophy or psychology aspect. So it was kind of an experience. I had to spend like hours to think about stuff. Yeah, that was my experience. But it was cool. I mean, it's always good to learn something new. So it was an interesting experience.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel very much the same way based on like which article it was. There were a few I didn't really care for, but for the most part, it was definitely cool to like read something new and learn new things in the field. I kind of like that about all the seminars in general. It's just like cool to see like what's out there and like what other people are doing and thinking about, you know, in biology and ecology as a whole.
Great.
So,
Well, I'm glad it went well. Yeah. So, and I guess the other piece of this is that my hope, like maybe you're all going to become biologists. I kind of doubt it though. But like my hope is that in doing this class, you might learn some biology, but you might also learn something that's helpful in the future, right? So I don't really know how to get ideas to spread on Facebook, but like I know the mechanisms that might be used. So, social media is important. So, yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you all for doing that with us. It was a big experiment, and I think it went pretty well. So now we're back into the more standard course material. Does anybody how was your experience in making the videos that you made this week? Was it easier than your last videos? You all changed it up a little bit.
I thought it was easier just because like I kind of knew how to navigate the basics in Adobe versus the first time I had no idea where anything was.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the last time we did this discussion, like the tutorial was super useful because I was able to use some of that in my second video. But I'm still kind of like having trouble like figuring things out and getting it how I want. And I'm just like, okay, like this is as I'm gonna get it, and then just like kind of leaving it as is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely like other stuff that I want to learn how to do.
Cool. Well, like what?
So like making the cuts between takes clearer.
Mm-hmm.
And like I Googled, so like I just Google everything because I don't really know how else to find stuff out. And I was like asking how to make the cuts cleaner, and it said to put in this morphing thing. And so when I did that in between cuts, weird things were popping up on the screen. Like it would say like analyzing or something like that. And then it would show up in my final video. And I was like, oh, I don't want that. So I need to figure out how to make it cleaner without anything coming up on the screen.
Yeah, well, so there was a video that I sent out. It was one of the earliest videos that I sent out on types of cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
So like there's a whole people have written books on the different kinds of cuttings and transitions, right? And like you probably can remember in some movies that you like of like really cool match cuts where like there's an image on the frame and then it shifts, but like it's kind of the same image.
Yeah.
Have any of you ever seen the film The Fall?
Mm-hmm.
Never mind. But yeah, I mean, so there is, when you're making like movie art, making good match cuts is like, it's one of it's fetishized as like a thing that like everybody wants to do really well, and it's really hard. And so there are a lot of techniques that you can do to make your cuts, transitions from one frame to another smooth. But in YouTube language, right, like YouTube has its own sort of editing dialect, that's adapted to the sort of, like short 5 minute, like low production value content that has done really well on YouTube, as opposed to like, the movie screen or on television or something like that. And for YouTube, really just having like efficient jump cuts is like the number one thing. And so to do that, you don't actually need any like special graphic transition or anything like that. You just need to like pay very close attention to timing.
Okay.
So like there's a really specific difference between the way that we talk when we're having a conversation like this and the way that a monologue works on YouTube, is that typically when we finish a sentence, we pause before we start the next sentence, which is exactly the opposite of what you want to do when you're editing. That when you finish a sentence and you're cutting to a new thing, you want there to be as little silent space as possible. So you don't actually have to worry that much about what it looks like visually. Like making something work visually is challenging, but YouTube sort of forgives it. Like in any other context, having these weird choppy jump cuts would not be something that people thought was okay. But like YouTube has just sort of embraced it, and that's just the way that it works on this platform. So the careful thing, and I think I pointed that out. I posted comments to your video this morning.
Yeah.
That like it's basically just pauses. And so what I'll often do is I'll look at the audio waveform, and like you can tell when you're speaking and when you're not based on the audio signal, and you just make your cuts so that there's like literally no silent space. Like even you can even cut out like the time you spend breathing, is what I'll often do between sentences, and that makes things feel tighter.
Okay, so don't necessarily worry about like the visual aspect of it, just so that there's no pauses in like audio, you're saying?
Yeah, pay
Okay.
attention to audio. Getting really, really cool, artsy visual transitions is something you can spend your entire life figuring out how to do well. And like you should, like play around with it. Like I'm sure, there's maybe I'll send out a video tomorrow about these in-camera transitions. Like there's a number of like cool things that you can do really quickly to like make your transition from one scene to another feel more fluid. But the real critical thing and the easiest thing is just to make sure that the audio is continuous.
Okay.
You don't have any dead sound.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so what I guess I'd like to do is just sort of, if we could all watch someone's video and then take some time to talk about it. I think that works pretty well. Does anybody wanna volunteer?
If no one else wants to, I guess we could do mine again.
Yeah, I would love to do yours, Victoria. I mean, it would be, we did yours last time, right? So it would be nice to do, but we have time for several people. And there's a lot about your film that I would really like to talk about with the group. So we can start with that. Okay, so like last time, I'm gonna get a link to Victoria's video, and I'll post it in the chat box, and then everybody mute your microphone and we'll watch it and then return back here. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Victoria, and this video is
There we go. All right. Yeah, I need to mute my microphone. All right, so the link is there. Cool. So what did you folks think about that?
I liked how she used like that text method in different ways through the video. Like it popped up, or like she tried to use it to like emphasize the self versus no self thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a great part where she just raised her hand. Self, no self. Loved it.
Yeah, I really liked that too. So I guess the two things I could say about, right. So I'll start with the negative thing because it's kind of minor. But like timing is really critical, right? And like what your impulse there, what you tried to do was really fantastic. But it kind of because it didn't quite match the audio. It sort of lagged a little bit. But like I really like your impulse in doing that. And like there's the concluding line of the film that one of you was playing it just before we began, the Every Frame a Painting piece. Who was playing that film?
I don't know.
Oh, that was me.
It was you. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to get back into the habit of sending you a video every day about filmmaking or science communication or something. And I particularly like that video essay. And then the conclusion, his like concluding sentence is like, you have to remember that video essays aren't essays, they're films, right? And like there's something specific about telling a story visually, which is incredibly powerful if it's done well, right? Like we enjoy watching videos, whereas reading papers is not necessarily so fun. But in order to do it well, you have to constantly keep in mind that what you're doing is you're presenting visual information. And we tend to want to fixate on the words that we are saying because that's what we're used to focusing on, and that's what we're taught to focus on in school. And this medium requires us to play around with just like shapes on a screen more to hold people's attention. And so there were a few things that you did in that film, and the self no self thing was one of the best of like really recognizing like, oh hey, I'm in this little box, I'm talking to someone else, they're looking at me, how can I make sure that what they're looking at is interesting? So that was really great.
Thank you.
And I think one thing that I liked about the video was adding Mel's comment about language. I think it made the video kind of solid because you had a backup, with the information you were trying to, give out, and I think that was also interesting.
Yeah, I really appreciated that, and that's something that I would love to see all of you do more. Is pull quotes from the lecture and incorporate them into the video. But doing it well is challenging. I think my favorite example of this, maybe all these videos I should send you out. So one of my students last semester named Nicole, she did this really great montage where she had the speaker ask a question, and then very quickly in succession, she gave short answers that every one of the students did, right? And I really liked that because it reminded us that like because the cool thing about this, or the unique thing about this class, is that we are a class, right? We have all of our voices and all of our thoughts, and if we are skillful, we can incorporate them into nice completed pieces. Right, so did any of you watch the video that I made? I didn't actually send it out, the Neither Ghost Nor Machine video that I made, but I included quotes from Wong and Victoria. So I really like that, of like trying to curate the conversation that we're having and put it into our films. But that said, it's very difficult to do well. And I think, Victoria, that the quote that you included, although it was appropriate, it was far too long. Okay. And because again, like the cadences that we use when we're speaking and trying to figure out what we're going to say ahead of time, there's a lot of pauses. There's just a lot of excess verbiage. And even if there isn't, like even if someone is super eloquent and soliloquizing about something, if you're quoting them for more than like 30 seconds, it becomes visually uninteresting because the we don't, you know, this, what we're in right now, it's low bandwidth, like the resolution isn't great, like, you know, we're not, it's not, it, again, this thing about visual storytelling is critical. And so I guess like maybe what I would have done if I wanted to include the entire quote that you did is I would have cut it into 2 or 3 pieces and interspersed my own commentary along the way. You know, so what Mel means when she says this jargony word is something, something. And, you know, like there's a certain kind of rhythm to your cuts that I think you'll find. You know, you want to be switching back and forth between one thing and another at a certain rate to keep people engaged. And so it's especially tricky when you're pulling quotes because the footage isn't that high quality. To make it engaging requires some sound editing decisions, basically. But like I would definitely encourage all of you to go back to our recorded lectures and rewatch them and pull out pieces that you think are super relevant and include them, because it makes the videos much stronger.
See, I just don't know how to like do that, like how to record from the video, or even just take the whole video and cut out the part I'm trying to quote. Like I would have no idea where to start.
Okay, well, why don't I show you? Let's do a quick tutorial about that, and then we'll see where we end up. So I'm gonna turn on screen share. Okay, here's my Ouroboros screen. And here's Premiere Pro. Oh, I have this. This is literally where we left off last time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that was several weeks ago. I think I'm going to restart this program because Premiere doesn't like to be open for months. Okay, let's see where we are. Let's open a new project. We'll just put it on the desktop. And we're going to call it Jeremy. All right. Here we are. Oh, gosh. Window. I want the... So I messed it up when I closed this, and I lost my my playback. So now I have to find it. Wow, I've never actually done that before. You know, this program is there's a lot of there. So anyway, I'm gonna hope that Adobe just fixes it on its own. So I'm gonna pull in. This is the file that I downloaded from YouTube. So to download a file from YouTube, just Google like download YouTube video, and there's a number of services that you can use, and it'll just ask you for the URL. So here's the entire lecture. Oh, I see what happened. I want it to be like this. Okay, great. So here's the entire lecture, and you can see down here that it's interpreting all of the audio. So we'll have to wait for the audio to interpret because it's 2 hours long. So that'll take a few seconds. But paying attention to the audio waveforms will speed up your editing tremendously because it's very difficult to do it visually. But you get a visual representation of the audio in the audio frame, and it's super helpful. Right. So here we are. It's almost done. There we go. So let's go to the second half where we're all talking. We can zoom in, and you see when you zoom in, there's all of these little phrases, right? So let's play it here. What is he saying?
Here are some guides for thinking about how to do this. And basically, one of the things I say is you're still going to need to pay attention to reality. What'll kill you, or what'll kill whatever you care about,
right? So that's, you know, Jeremy rambling, right? So one thing to pay attention to right here is you see this right? Like I know it's an because there's blank space on either side. Also, I heard him say it, but we can watch it again, right? So we'll start here.
And basically, one of the things I say is, you're still going to need to pay attention to.
Right, so we don't need the So what we can do is we can just pay attention to the audio waveform and cut it. So I hit C to use the cut tool. That's this one here. And we can pay attention to the audio waveform and cut it there. And we can also cut it there. And then we can just take this and we hit Shift Delete to remove it and fuse the rest. And now we can play it back.
How to do this. And basically, one of the things I say is, you're still going to need to pay attention to reality. Well,
right, and that looks really smooth, and it's not even completely evident that there is a cut there, and sometimes it won't be that smooth, depending. But so, Chris, to answer your question, is like, let's say you want to take a quote. So I mean, it requires that you sort of rewatch everything, or not everything, but rewatch at least the pieces that you think you want to quote from. And then we do this thing where we just find the clip. So we're going to cut it there, and we're going to cut it there. So this is Jeremy saying this phrase. And of course, this phrase isn't particularly meaningful, but I just picked it. So we have these two clips. I'm gonna raise them up just so they're easier to see, right? And so then what you do is you go to File, New Sequence, right? And you call this your main project. And then what you can do is you've got these two sequences here. You've got this one, which is the 2-hour file, and then you've got this one, which is your project. And you can just take these sequences and copy it into here, right? And then, you know, there might be some other things. So we can go and here's me. I think this is me. Yeah, so here's me, and here's this 45-second clip of me. And I'll do the same thing. Like, I'll pay attention to the audio waveform, and I'm talking only here. Using this, right? And so then I just cut out all of the garbage and just delete that and delete that. And then I bring these two clips together. And because I'm paying attention to the audio waveforms, I know that my transitions are going to be quick. Right, so let's watch that transition.
To reality will kill you.
But right, oh, but here's me breathing. I don't actually want this breathing. So I noticed that, and so this is the breath in. So I'm going to cut that out, and I'm also going to cut this more tightly. And then I can just delete both of these, Shift Delete, and now we can watch this transition, and it'll be more tight.
Kill you.
But actually, right? So that's a very quick. I'm going to turn off the screen share. But Chris, does that sort of at least a little bit answer your question?
That answers so many of my questions. You have no idea. I know nothing about video editing.
Yeah, I mean, so this class is funny, right? In that basically the way that I'm teaching you video editing is I'm basically just saying, like, go make a video, right? Like, there are definitely editing classes that you could take that, you know, probably in the film department at Binghamton that would lead you sort of step by step through and like, here's the, but like the way that I think learning works best is if you're just sort of thrown into something and you ask your own questions and then you answer them, right? So I'm happy to show you various things on Premiere, but I think the best way to learn this stuff is really just to learn by doing. And that's why I've structured it this way. It's like the thing that we're learning is biology. And like you're also learning video editing, but it's kind of, you know, how sophisticated you get with this is sort of up to you. And I can guide you, but you know, you just sort of have to play with it and see what you get. Does anybody have any further comments on Victoria's film before we move on?
No.
I have a question like about text.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, like, in your videos, get the text to come up like a letter at a time?
It depends on how. Are you talking about the writing?
Yeah, like, no, so like, it's not like you writing, it's like being typed out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just like words appear like at a time. It looks like they're being like, I don't know how to describe it. Like they slowly appear on the screen to complete a sentence versus like all the text being there at one time.
Yeah. So are you talking about specifically in some of the videos in the articles when the speaker is talking and I'm writing out text as subtitles?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that doing that technique, there's a number of ways that you can do it. The way that I did it in those videos is I'm actually using a different program. I'm using After Effects. So I don't know, some of you probably already had the Adobe Suite, but like, did you rent just Premiere or did you?
Yeah.
But there are ways to do it in Premiere, right? So I can show you that, right? And again, it's just like a lot of this stuff comes down to paying really detailed attention to timing, which is not, you know, it's somewhat tedious, and you can get quick at it. Like, I'm pretty quick at it now, but I'm quick at it because I've done it for hours and hours and hours. And unfortunately, there isn't really, I mean, there are ways, you know, there are a lot of different methods, and some of them work better than others. And some of them are quicker than others. And often I'll resort to something that's like quick and dirty rather than like super time consuming, but will look better at the end. But let me show you one way to do it just using Premiere, because that'll, you know, that's a thing that you can do. So we're just going to continue using this clip, except I actually want to make a new sequence because I don't like this. So one thing is, like, you'll notice that the sequence here, it's like cropping everything. It's like very small. And the aspect ratio is 4:3. And I don't really want a 4:3 aspect ratio. So if I hit Control K, you know,
Can you screen share?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Screen share. Okay. Yeah. So this is in this sequence I'm working in, it's a 4:3 aspect ratio, and I don't really like that. So I'm going to go to sequence settings. Let's see, sequence settings, right? And then we can change here. Pixel aspect ratio, we want it to be 16:9. And I mean, so I don't actually normally do it this way because it's kind of tedious and you can kind of get it wrong. So I'm going to do it the way I normally do it, which is actually, I'm going to do File, New, Sequence 2. And then when the sequence is empty, if you drag in a clip from the project manager, it will automatically ask you if you want to change the sequence settings to match the clip. So that's what I recommend you doing. And you want to be using a 16:9 aspect ratio. And I know the cameras that you all are using are like kind of diverse. I would strongly recommend using your cell phones because most of them will film in HD. Victoria, we're using like you had some sort of like fisheye lens. What were you using?
A GoPro.
You were using a GoPro. Okay, awesome. Well, so the next time you use that GoPro, you can change the field of view to linear, rather than medium or wide or super wide.
Okay.
GoPro has these like really cool wide angle things because they were originally designed for, like, you know, people who want to strap a camera to their head while they're skydiving or something. But if you're just going to be speaking into the camera for a while, it's better to have everything look straight.
Okay.
So if you change the setting to linear, you'll get a much neater image. But yeah, so with that GoPro or with cell phone footage or whatever, if you just drag your clip into Premiere, and it will automatically change the sequence settings to match. Okay, and so now once that's done, now I can take all this stuff and we can go here. So here are all these clips. So where are we? Right. Okay. So it changed it to max, but now these clips are smaller than your sequence, right? This was a problem that I think some of you have been having. Noang, I think your videos like this.
Yeah.
Cool. So the way that we can fix this is if you go to the clip and you select it, then you get this video effects come up here, and all we need to do is change the scale. So I think this needs to be 130%. Probably 150. Okay. Yeah, so you can just zoom in. Basically, it's a digital zoom. And then if you want to apply that to all of yours, you can actually just select the motion. So motion is position, scale, rotation, anchor point, all of these. And if you just hit Control-C, copy, and then go to the next clip, which is still small, and I hit Control-V, and it just copies whatever settings I had. Yeah. Okay, so subtitling and framing. So what is he saying?
And basically, one of the things I say is you're still going to need to pay attention to reality. What'll kill you.
Okay. So the quick and dirty way to do this in Premiere Pro is to add a new title. So we'll hit Control-T for a title, right? And I'm going to actually X this out. What does Jeremy say?
And basically, one of the things I say is
Okay. So we're going to make a new title. And, right, so the first thing he says is, and basically. Right? And we'll just bring this here. And then it's just a matter of finessing the timing. So if I bring this, I get this pink bar, and it's going to be there for way too long.
And basically, one of the things I say is,
right, and so I want it to just be when he's saying and basically, right? So if I zoom in really close, and I can make this bigger so that right, so you can see this waveform now. Mm-hmm. So I believe the basically ends here. Like if you pay attention to waveforms, you can actually predict where things are.
And basically,
okay, so this is basic, and then this is Lee. This next curve is Lee. So I'm going to drag this to here, and so that looks like this.
And basically, one of the
right, and then what's the next thing that he says? It's
one of the things I say is.
One of the things I say is. So that'll be 2. So one of the things. All right, so we do that, bring it to the next place, and then we just bring it to here. And
one of the things I say. One of the things I.
So one of the things ends something like here, and again we just sort of pull this in, and then we'll do one more.
What I say is.
Okay, so that will be I say is. Okay, and we go like that, and then we'll bring that in, and that one ends with the clip. I know that, so I'll just cut it there. Delete that, and now let's watch and see how this looks.
And basically, one of the things I say is
right. So I mean, it's not the best, and there are things that we can do to make it better, right? So I can add a transition. So Shift D adds this like cross dissolve thing, right? So that'll like make the transitions between them a little bit smoother.
And basically, one of the things I say is
right. So that's and so there's lots of little things like that. And then the other thing is that you can mess with scale. So, and that involves using keyframes. So if I turn the stopwatch onto scale here, right, I can have the end basically expand over the time that he says it. So right now it's at 100, and there's this keyframe here. Let me zoom in on this so you can see it a little better. You see that little blip there? And then I'm going to drag this to here, and I'm going to add another blip, and I'm going to make it bigger. And now we have this.
And basically, one of the things
right. So I mean, I'm sort of just dicking around, right? You want it to look cohesive when you're doing things, but basically the way to make text match words is by paying very close attention to timing and using title frames.
What is that part that's highlighted? I didn't read it.
Sorry, can you say that again?
The part where you were like increasing the number, what is that under?
So we're under effects controls here.
Okay.
So, and that's the default. Like whenever you select a clip, up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll get effects controls. And there's a whole lot of them. And the default ones are motion and opacity and volume. Okay. Then you can add a bunch more, right? So for example, let's look, there's like a glow. Let me turn on a glow. Let's say glow, alpha glow, right? So stylized alpha glow. So if I select this one and I select the alpha glow, right now in the effects controls, I've got this new thing called a glow, right? And glow is really simple, and you can see the glow on around the words and basically, and I can make it bigger or smaller, just like that, right? And so if I want to animate this glow, it's the same deal. So I'll start here. I will keyframe the glow at 0, right? And I'm going to have the glow slowly increase over the course of the and basically. And so I'll keyframe here and drag it to be, 100. And now if we watch it, it looks like this.
And basically what?
Right? So any effect in Premiere, you can keyframe to have it turn on or off in a linear fashion. And so there's thousands of different effects. And you can look around and see which ones you want to use, and there's transitions, and so one thing you were asking me earlier about video transitions. So like what I have as my default transition is this sort of cross dissolve, but we can do a funnier transition, like a checkerboard transition. I mean, these are super gimmicky, and I don't often recommend using them because they're like kind of dumb. But oh, hi. Yeah, anyway.
One of the things
So
I say is you're still going
so you see that checkerboard?
I say
Yeah.
is you're
And then we can change the checkerboard, right? Like it probably asks you how many checkers you want. I don't know. Like, yeah, I mean, this is a really stupid effect.
is you're still going to
Yeah, so, you know, it
You're
does
still
its things. So the checker effect would probably be more visible if we switched to something that was very visually different. So we can do the checkerboard over here. And now let's watch it.
I say is but actually
Right? So, I mean, don't use that effect, but it's there. And there are lots of other effects that you might want to use that are less campy. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Victoria?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. I will turn off screen share. Okay. So can we turn to somebody else's video? I can pick on you, but I don't like picking on people. All right, I will pick on you. So Robert, can we watch your video? Robert, oh God, there's no Robert in this class. Richard, Richard, can we watch your video?
Sure.
Okay, all right. So I will pull that up and send a link.
My name is Richard, and today I'm going to be making a video.
All right, so Okay, so what are some preliminary thoughts about that piece?
Did you add that Evos Tivos logo in the bottom corner? Because that's awesome. I think that's a great touch. The whole video, like that's not just on there, right? Like Richard, like
I
that yourself.
added that. So all of the
Oh,
videos, yeah, all of the videos that get uploaded to the channel, that logo is in the corner.
Because like the rest of the visual stuff, in my opinion, is great. Like the adding the images in the corner while you're also still there, it really helps, and like I feel like catches my attention more as a viewer and keeps me more compelled to like watch the video and actually like try to understand what you're saying and like wrap my head around the concept thoughts that were discussed in the lecture as a whole, because like it's not easy stuff.
We lost him.
Yeah, I think he disconnected.
I was going to say, like, I felt like he did a good job at kind of summarizing what was going on in the lecture. Like, during the lecture, I felt like a lot of us, or at least myself, was kind of, like, lost some of the way. But he kind of, like, summarized it and explained it pretty well in his own words, which I liked. And I liked the bit about language, because that was, like, something that we kept going back to, is how language really influences which organisms we see as having a self. So I liked that part.
So sorry, guys. I went off. I don't know what happened. Sorry.
And it happens, you know. It's 2018. In 2028, we'll look back at this and be like, oh, who are those grainy kids on the internet? Yeah. Well, so I think, Richard, what you missed was Chris said that he really appreciated your putting the images in the corner of the screen, and then Victoria said that she thought you did a really great job doing the summary. And I very much agree with both of those things. I would have liked to have seen more images, actually.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole style of doing exactly that. You know, all these videos I should send you. Have any of you seen anything by Mike Rugnetta Idea Channel? No? Okay. Anyway, there's a whole YouTube world. I will slowly introduce you to it. But there's definitely like a certain kind of dialectic that you can get by speaking and keeping your face on the screen, but then having an image pop up right here. You know, it's kind of like a teacher in front of a whiteboard drawing images, but you can do it like lightning fast, and the images are better quality, right? But there's also, because you can do it so fast and the images are better quality, there's an expectation that if you do something like that you do it consistently. And so what you did was good, but the video would have felt more cohesive if you had like stuck with it and you know, for every sentence had an image or something like that, which is hard, right? It's hard to like find all of the right images. You don't want to just put something on the screen even if it isn't relevant. But that's the, you know, having more visual changes is always good.
Yeah, and I personally think I could have been, like, based on what you said earlier about the breakages, I could because I was just thinking like maybe allowing some breakages will make it more real. By looking at what you just said today, like the explanation you gave, I think it should be more smooth. It should be, even though you want to make it real, you still have to consider it's a YouTube video and you have to cut out like any form of like pause or breath or everything like that. So I think I'll work on that on my next video.
Yeah. And the other thing about that is, like, I really appreciated that you were very organic in talking. Like, it sounds like you just sort of like you had an idea of what you wanted to say and you just sort of sat down and you said it. You weren't reading a script, you were talking into the camera, which was really nice. And Victoria, you were performing a script, right? That's how you did it?
Yeah, like I had it, so that's why I had so many cuts, because like I had stuff written down and I was trying to memorize it, but then if I didn't say it the way I wanted to, I had to like start all over. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's the way that I do it, right? And if you wanna say something that is like particularly wordy or you're like trying to lead to a point, you have to say it in a certain way. You know, I will often record myself saying the same thing half a dozen times before I get it right, and that's just sort of the nature of it. But when you do that, there's this trade-off of like you all of a sudden you have to be a performer, And there is something very authentic about just sitting down in front of a camera and talking, right? Because people can tell, like you can tell when someone is performing a script based or compared to just talking. And sometimes you want one and sometimes you want the other. Like I'm not going to say that either is better or worse. What is definitely worse is reading something and having it be apparent that you're reading it. Like it's much, much better to either ad lib and talk to a camera like you're talking to a person, or perform a script, memorize your lines, say them with emphasis and with a smile and all the rest. And so I'm glad that there wasn't much of that. But yeah, if you are going to talk into a camera, there's a couple of handicaps that you then have to overcome in the edit. And one is that you're going to pause more than is really appropriate for a YouTube video. And sometimes you're going to make, well, I just did it. I didn't mean to say the word visual. I meant to say the word auditory, right? You're going to make spoken word mistakes. And editing out those spoken word mistakes is a challenge. And I think there are some little errors in your speech in that video that you didn't edit out that it would be good if you did. But, you know, then there's this extra layer of like, sometimes when you try to edit out speech errors, it actually just makes them worse because you're like cutting out half of a sentence and people can tell. And like Nawang, that happened in your video a little bit, that like, I think you were trying to cut out some of these things and it ended up making things a little bit choppy. So we can look at your video next, because I mean, you did a great job most of the time, but there were a few areas where you cut yourself in ways that you didn't have to. But yeah, so it's a tricky balance. But I really liked your camera presence, Richard, like the way that you were engaging with the camera and talking to it as if it were a person. And I liked how free flowing your ideas were. But there's some drawbacks to that. So I talked about the drawbacks of you know, having to cut out pauses and cut out speech errors. And the other drawback is organization. Like when we're talking, we're not nearly as organized with our thoughts as if you write a script beforehand. And so it's sometimes it's easier to make linear arguments that have a beginning and a middle and an end if you map out what you're going to say ahead of time. So that's another thing, is I think the video towards the end maybe got a little bit rambly, and performing a script can help solve that problem as well. That's a lot of things I said, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
What camera did you use? Did you use a cell phone or a laptop?
I used my laptop.
Use your laptop. Cool. Yeah, so different laptop cameras are different. I think probably the best cameras that you all have access to will be on your cell phones. That's my guess. But laptop is fine as well. Any final thoughts on Richard's video?
I guess maybe just like speaking a little bit louder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's another thing. I agree with you, Victoria. And there's a few ways that we can fix quiet speech. One of which is that you can just raise the volume in Premiere. Do you folks know how to do that? Should I show you how to do that really quickly?
Yes, please.
Okay. So if we go, I'm going to turn the screen share. Okay. So back to Premiere Pro. So here we have our waveforms. And let me get a few more. Okay. So here are the various waveforms. So there are two ways to change the volume. One is quick and dirty, and other gives you more control. So I'll show you the quick and dirty way. So if you right-click a clip and you hit audio gain, it'll bring up this little dialog box, and you can adjust the gain however you want. So you have to be careful with this because it's easy to adjust the gain beyond the capacity of the microphone. So for example, if I raise the gain by 10 decibels, it's going to be terrible. And you can tell that it's going to be terrible because I've peaked. You see here how I've hit the top of the thing? And so if I raise the gain to the point of peaking, I mean, I don't know how you'll be able to tell with me playing it. It's bad.
And basically, one of the things I say is,
like, you get a lot of reverb. So I'm gonna undo that. So then you sort of have to figure out, like, how far can I raise the gain without getting distortion. So I'm gonna guess I can do 6 decibels. Well, that was a little too much. You can see I peaked here and there. It's not that bad, but I want to take it down a notch. So I'm gonna do -2. Okay, so now I've not peaked anywhere. Like, I've just pushed it here, but you can see the slope the entire time, so that's good. So that's the quick and dirty way. But sometimes you don't want to change the audio level of the entire clip. You just want to change the audio level of parts of it. So that, once again, gets into keyframing. So if we're here, what we can do is we can go to audio effects and we can keyframe the level. It's already framed. So now we're at 0 decibels. And then we can drag over to here and we can set another keyframe, and let's bring it down. We're going to do -15. Right, and so you can see now this line showed up here. So I'm at 0. Now I'm at -15, and now let's go up here and we can bring it up, and we'll set another keyframe, and we can go to, let's do +6. Now I'm like that, and so you can see this line sort of tells you the story of the volume, but it doesn't actually change the waveform as it appears, the way that changing the audio over here changed the waveform pattern. If you do it with keyframes, it's not going to change the waveform pattern. Instead, you get this line that tells you where the volume is at. And so now I can play this clip, and you can see the volume as it changes.
yeah, or well, kill whatever you care about. You have to be realistic, but you.
So that was that. I'm going to stop screen sharing. Is that clear to everybody?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So you can raise the volume if you find that the audio is too quiet. You can raise the volume in Premiere. The other thing you can do is record with a better microphone. So I think Richard, I would recommend using your cell phone next time, because cell phones have better microphones on them than laptops do.
Okay.
So your audio recording will be better with the cell phone, and the amount that you can push it in Premiere, like if you want to raise the volume, you're going to hit a threshold where you can't get it any louder because it'll just get distorted. And the better your microphone is, the more you can raise the volume without distortion happening. So you use the best hardware you have access to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. If we're gonna use our cell phones to record it, should we only use the forward cam, or is the self cam like the same quality?
The forward cam is a higher quality than the self cam.
Okay.
The self cam has the option of it lets you see your frame, right? So it lets you frame the shot a little bit more easily. But the forward cam tends to be better quality.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you want to watch one more video before we conclude for the day? I was hoping we could watch Nwang's.
Sure.
Cool. Okay. So,
Hi, I'm
no,
Victoria. In this
that's the
video,
wrong one.
and the self, we talked about what makes self.
Okay. So there's Nwang's video. Let's give it a watch. Okay. So what are some thoughts on that one?
I spelled apartment wrong.
I didn't even notice. Yeah, I have some typos in my videos that now I'm acutely aware of because mean people on Reddit made me aware.
I liked the, I mean, again, like I like the comparison, like between a house cat and a worm. I mean, and also the same thing. Like I felt like you spoke really well about the ideas and were able to explain them well. I think it was just like the camera. There was a lag between like the words and like the visual. But that's not you. That's just like the camera. But I mean, I liked the video and thought that like your thoughts were explained well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend using your cell phone next time. I think that will improve things. And I have a few more things to say about your video, but actually that brings up an interesting question for me, which is I'm wondering, given that Jeremy's lecture was so esoteric, I guess is the word, did you find that making these videos about it helped you, like, do you feel like you have a better grasp on the ideas now that you've made a thing about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I went and reread the first 2 chapters to try to like get a better understanding of what he was saying in the video. And I think the book explained his terminologies better for sure. I mean, I'm sure it was hard for him to talk in front of a group and try to explain every little bit, but definitely going back helped.
Cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I think in this book it had, like the one was saying, it had very good explanations. And the lecture, I think it was a seed chapter, was talking about selves. That was where I really got the understanding of like everything mostly. So I think like going back to the book helped a lot, and making the video made me really understand everything in a nutshell because I had to read more and stuff like that. Yeah, so the video really helped.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I've said this before, but I feel quite strongly that the best way to learn something is to try to explain it to someone else. So that's, you know, that's the core of this class. So it's nice to see that is working to some regard. Yeah, so Nwang, your video, there were a lot of, you know, it was quite good. And you sort of went through the ideas piece by piece. That was excellent. There were a few things with the editing. This was what I brought up previously that I said I wanted to bring up your videos. Like you did a lot of good cuts, and like you cut in the right places, but you were often cutting off your last words or your first words. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to go back and like pull it back out to try to recut it, and it just kept doing the same thing. And then at some points, I was just like, I just gave up on some of the cuts. That's for sure. Like I could have definitely re-recorded it, but I think it was just like timing for me.
Were you using a mouse when you were editing?
I was using my like trackpad on my laptop.
I strongly recommend using a mouse. Have any of you been using mice? Okay. I mean, maybe it's just because like sorry?
I think I don't know if it's possible because my first video I tried to use my laptop and it didn't work. So I think the mouse is the best thing you can use when you're editing.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like if you're using an Apple computer, you might be able to get away with it because like they've put a ton of R&D into their trackpads. But I've been using cheap Windows laptops for as long as I've been editing, and just the only way is to use an external mouse. But they're not that expensive. You can get. I'm sure you have one lying around if you look. It will absolutely improve your speed and quality of editing if you use a mouse.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm in Binghamton, so I don't have like all my extra things lying around. But I would like zoom in a lot on the audios and try to like cut at the very exact line that I thought was correct.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it just didn't work.
Yeah. And it takes practice. And I think your impulse is right. Like, you shouldn't overwork this. Like, you know, if there are some editing errors in there, you know, you tried your best, and you shouldn't spend extra, you know, super amounts of time trying to get it perfect, because that's a way to drive yourself crazy. But you know, in the future, do try to make the cuts a little bit neater, because it'll improve the quality dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the other thing I was wondering, I'd like to talk a little bit about the final graphic that you did with the selves in your apartment.
Mm-hmm.
What were you? Because it was very creative, but it also like didn't quite fit. So I'm wondering what your thought process behind that was.
Yeah. So since I talked about like the house cats and the worms, I thought, and how like non-human organisms also, according to Jeremy's definition, have a self. Like his definition was all living things. And so I was like, oh, like these are living things in my apartment. Like, let me put them in. But yeah, that was.
I really liked it. And the other thing that I liked is like you were definitely trying to do some sort of visual diversity with it, of like showing one image at a time and having them appear and disappear. I thought that was really good. But it also, I was a little bit confused because you weren't talking about houseplants, you were talking about cats and worms.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a disconnect between the audio and the visual, which
Mm-hmm.
which made it not quite work. But I would love to see something like that in your next video, of you know, having narration and having images appear and disappear. I think that it works quite well.
Okay.
Any last words? Yeah.
Yeah, I think she did a really good job with the letters she wrote on the screen. I didn't do that. I think that would have been something that would have made my video more real, or like more easy to read or to follow. So I think Wong did a very good job with the. I think she made a very long statement that she also put on the video, which was really cool.
Yeah, I really liked that as well. How did you decide on that octagon text box?
Originally I just put the text in, but the colors, like it didn't matter what color I used to fill and like outline it. So I just decided to put a background so that the text was more visible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was just too bright in my living room.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I really liked the octagon. Like, I thought it was like this simple but like personal touch that made it stand out. And I would, yeah. So that was fantastic. I feel the urge to show you another way to do it. I don't actually think this is the way that would have worked best. I think that what you did works better than what I'm going to show you. But the problem that you had in your living room was not actually that it's too bright, but that it was too diverse. That we're used to reading text on a monochrome background. And so whenever we try to put text on a multicolored background where there's light and dark sections, like it never works. So there are a few ways around that. One way is to give it a nice text box like you did, but you can also just give it a border. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so here we are over here, and we have these lovely things, right? And so I showed you that glow effect for a reason, which is that glow is one way to give text a border, but it's not the only way. So I'm going to turn off this glow, right? And then the other thing is I'm going to go into this text box, and I'm going to turn off the stroke, right? So I have an outer stroke over here. See that? I'm going to turn off the stroke, and now it's very hard to read. But if we turn the glow back on, now, well, that's actually still pretty hard to read. but we can turn the glow back on, and then change the color of the text to black, or something like that. Yeah, so now that's easier to read. And then we can give it a stroke and change the color of the stroke to red. And so basically there's a lot of ways to make text stand out, and it basically means giving it a monochrome background. But you can do that by giving it a whole big text box, or you can just do things like stroke or glow or any of the other text augmentation features that we have. So yeah, come on. Great. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. Well, so we're just sort of wrapping up the discussion. I guess one thing that I should have done way earlier, but I guess no time like the present, is I should introduce you all to Chris, who just sort of like popped in very seamlessly. But so Chris, I guess, was enrolled at the last. I don't know how I missed you, but you were on Blackboard, but I wasn't sending you any of the emails, and you had pneumonia. That was your story?
Yeah, I had two very bad illnesses.
Yeah. So in any case, Chris missed our first 3 lectures, but he made videos for ContraPoints and for Jeremy, and so he's going to be with us for the rest of the class. So welcome. I think you've done pretty good at catching up.
Yeah, and I think the video on gender was on ContraPoints was really good. Yeah.
I definitely worked hard on the ContraPoints one, but I'm really bad at editing videos, and it really just discouraged me. So when it came to the second video, I just gave up. I was like, I'm just gonna film myself talking, edit nothing.
Well, so that's an interesting thing, because Richard did the same thing, right? I mean, you did a little bit of editing, but the lack of jump cuts around talking is technically a problem. But I really appreciated that both of you were just like speaking authentically into a camera, and I don't want to discourage you from doing that, because I think the results were actually quite good. So it's just it's a challenge to speak authentically into the camera and also have your ideas feel structured and together. But if you can manage both, then you've got something really good going on. Yeah. Well, in any case, I guess we're at an hour and 15 minutes. I mean, Chris, if you want, we have time. So if you want us to workshop one of your videos, we can, or we can postpone until next discussion.
I'd rather wait for the third one, because I feel like after today what you showed us, and I'm definitely gonna spend some time on my own looking around the program. I just need to work on my video editing, because I could definitely make a good video. I just realized going into it for the first 2 how hard it was gonna be to actually make a good video. Like, thought I could just throw some things into a program and it would just work, and it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
it's pretty difficult. So I think my third one will be a lot better for sure. I'm definitely willing to workshop that one, because I could tell you everything wrong with my first 2 videos. Like, I know what I did wrong.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, this is hard. This is hard stuff, right? Like there's quite a learning curve. But I think you all are doing really, really great at it. You know, you're all trying really hard, and I'm thrilled. So yeah, I mean, so I guess to conclude today's class, I guess I'm wondering just general thoughts about how the class is going. You know, are there areas that you feel like you could use some more support, or like what's going well for you? What are you enjoying? What's really boring?
I actually just had a quick question, if that's okay. Make my videos, you know, to improve them. Do you know any programs for the computer I could use to record a drawing while I draw it on my laptop? Like, I have a touchscreen laptop, so I can only draw on it. And if you ever watched a biology video to teach you how to learn something, like a Bozeman science one or something, you know, a program like that where I could you know, multicellularity by drawing some cells, you know, and have a recording of me drawing it.
Yeah. So unfortunately that software is not nearly as good as you would like it to be, but it definitely does exist. So there's a number of screen capture softwares that you can use. The most common is OBS, Open Broadcast Studio. And I think there's a program I was using for a while called Bandicam. Let me confirm if I'm just making that up or not. Recording software for screen, yeah. So Bandicam is okay. Open Broadcast software is kind of the standard that YouTubers use because it's free. There's software that you can pay a bajillion dollars for that doesn't really work that much better than OBS. So I would recommend starting with OBS and see if you can get what you want to do with that, and then maybe try out Bandicam if that doesn't work.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that there's a low-tech way to do it, which is the way that Victoria did it, which actually works quite well. Which is you can just set up your camera above what you're drawing.
I couldn't get away with that just because my penmanship and my ability to draw are both so atrocious. Like, you wouldn't be able to read what I'm writing, and you wouldn't be able to make out what I'm drawing.
Okay.
So I think you're on the computer.
Yeah. Yeah. So try OBS, and see if that suits your needs. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Richard.
Yeah, I'm kind of fascinated by the way like you like cut. I don't know if you use papers. Like I you know how sometimes in your videos like with the like most of the videos actually I can pinpoint, but you make some little papers and attachment like with I don't know how you do it, but you just get papers and cut them like little by little and then attach it, something like that. Like with a video on the multicellularity, you did something like you showed with the paper how it breaks off with apoptosis, like, and how different cells, break off. How do you do that?
So that, yeah, keep going.
You like just cut the papers and color it like the way you want it, and how do you go about it? I don't know.
So what I've been doing a lot to make my videos, a lot of it's just about style, right? Like the videos work best when you choose a certain style and go with it. So the style that I have sort of settled on is this like cardboard cutout aesthetic of like making things feel handmade. And so the animation style that I've been using is called stop motion, where I have a camera sitting above like this. There's my keyboard, right? So I mount the camera directly above where my hands are, and then I just have it roll. And here I'll show you with this. Oops, sorry. I'll show you with this CD, right? So if this is my animation table, and I have the CD, and I'm just rolling, what I'll do is I'll put the CD here, and then I'll move it slightly, and then pull my hand away. And then I'll move it slightly, and I'll pull my hand away. And I'll move it slightly, and I'll pull my hand away. And I'll do that for like 10 minutes. And then I have this file, and I'll cut out all of the parts of the file where my hand are. So I'll just take like 3 frames from each position that the CD is in. And when you stick them all together, you get this nice, it's like a flip book effect. Like, have you ever used a flip book where like the drawing changes ever so slightly on each page? So it's another animation technique, right? I mean, there's lots of them. And I guess what I would encourage you is not necessarily to do stop motion or to do anything, but think about ways that you can make your videos more visually interesting, right? Because what you're doing is making films, and anything that you can do that is artistic or creative or just novel, it will make the video stand out.
Cool. Right, thank you.
All right. Well, I guess that concludes our discussion. So our next class is on Monday with Patrick Forber. So you've all, I sent you out the paper to read. You all got that email? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So read his paper, and we'll hear from him on Monday. And your videos about Maria's lecture are also due on Monday.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For next Thursday's lecture with Carl Lippo, when is that video due?
That video is due the last day of the semester, which is it's due. Let's say noon on Monday the 15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Okay, I'm going to email you after.
Okay. Is that date a problem?
Yes, only because I'm gonna be flying to Virginia from Friday night until Sunday night. So I'm not gonna really be able to work on it that weekend.
Okay. Well, we can work something out.
Okay.
The hard deadline that I have, I don't actually even know what the hard deadline is, but at some point I have to submit your grades.
Okay.
So, but yeah, let's just talk privately, and we can figure something out. I don't want to stress you out with deadlines. That's not my
Okay.
job.
Thank you.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I will see you all on Monday. Thanks for a nice class discussion. I thought this went really well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Monday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.